guys, it is Tammy with Cheers to Creativity, and we're going to paint an owl. Want to paint an owl with me? I think it's going to be fun. Now, one of the things I love to do is to take something and that might look a little challenging and make it much easier than you think it's going to be. And so that's what we're going to do. And one of the fun ways I think you can do that is by how you do your background. And so our owl is actually going to go on this bouquet background. Bouquet is a fun background that you can do in so many different ways. I did a video on this. If you haven't seen it, go back and search for it. And by the way, when you're searching for it, why don't you go ahead and subscribe to this channel so you always know when we're doing something new. When I did it in the video, I actually did it two different ways. I did it this way too. So you'll get to see how we got a very similar effect, different colors, similar effect, using two different techniques. All right, so I'm going to do an owl on this guy. And a lot of times when I do these, I will have a tracer. I don't have one for this, but I was looking at him, and he's really pretty simple. This is my very, very, very rough sketch of him. But we know I know I want an owl sitting on a branch. So I'm first going to just do this. That's about where my branch is going to be. And I can go up and down from there. You may not be able to see that. I'm doing this with chalk. And if you ever need to sharpen your chalk, all you need to do is put it in a pencil sharpener, give it a twist, and you can get a nice sharp piece of chalk. So then when I break down the owl that I want to paint, his body's pretty much a circle. So let's kind of give us a good sized circle, almost to that branch. And then his head is actually an oval that just slightly overlaps his head, but it's not quite as big as his head. So there I have my oval on top of my head. Next, I would kind of need to, well, first we're going to have to fill that owl in before we do his facial features. But we know he's going to have two eyes and two noses. No, he's going to have one nose. But I could kind of give myself an idea of where his eyes are going to be. A couple circles. But again, that's going to get painted before I put those eyes in. So I'm not too worried about it. Now, he's going to have, well, he doesn't have to, but I think my owl needs some, he's more of a horn owl. So I'm going to do a curved line up and come back down. Boom. And he's going to need a couple wings. I think on this side, we're just going to see part of his wing. And on the other side, we can just kind of make a pointed teardrop that goes just below his body and it comes up. He's going to need some feet, and again, we won't be seeing these right now, but they're going to come right off his body, and they'll come 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and we make that branch big enough so it goes in there. But I need to decide if I'm going to see his tail. And I think I do kind of just want to see a bit of a tail. So we're just going to kind of make a tail behind there. Okay. So that's kind of my owl that we're going to play with. Trying to decide if he's big enough. I think he is. I might exaggerate him a bit when we go in and paint him. So the colors I'm going to use for this owl are going to be, maybe just a touch closer, I think. Put you down just a bit more over here. So an owl can be many, many colors. I'm going to make mine in the tans and browns. And I'm going to make him as easy as I can. Right away, he's going to look pretty okay just on that fun background. It makes him look elevated even before we start. So let's think. Let's think of maybe our guy will be maybe kind of a tan center. This might be a little too dark. This is honey brown, and I might even mix honey brown with just a little bit of light ivory to lighten them up just a touch, just a touch. I use Decor paints, but there's many other options out there. I'm just mixing these two colors to get just a lighter tan. I think I like that a little better. I probably need a paper towel or two. So I'm going to start this, and I do think I'm actually going to make him a little bigger. I think I'm going to just, as I put him down to begin with, let's actually make his body a little bigger than I originally planned. So I'm first going to go here, and I'm going to make his body a little bigger. So I'll just have to adjust my pattern as I go. So I just filled in the center of his body, which was that circle, right? Which I've just now changed a little bit, but that's okay. Basically a circle. Now his face, we're going to go around those eyes. Even though we know that we'll end up painting those. We're going to go around his eyes. I'm going to make him just a little bigger because I made his body a little bigger. And he's going to have a little color underneath his eyes. Okay. So that would be the first part of him. Just kind of, this is the color book stage of life, where we're just kind of filling in parts where he's going to have some color. And then I think I'm going to go with a bit of a brown. This is burnt umber. I'm going to grab a better brush. So this is the burnt umber, and he's going to have a little brown around his face. I might need to grab a round brush. Brushes are so personal. Whatever you like to use is what you use. But there we go. We'll make it a little rounder around his face. And we're going to switch to a round brush. And again, this is just kind of like the color book part of a painting, that if you can color, you can do the same thing. You're just doing it with a paintbrush. And I think that's perfectly okay. Bring a little bit of this brown right down between his eyes. And we're going to round off the top of his head. And his little ears would also be a little bit of the brown to begin with. So I'm just going to curve slightly up and then come back down on each side of the head. Slightly up and down. I think owls are kind of magical when you hear them hooting in the middle of the night. We don't have a lot of them around here, but we do have a few. Up and down. Okay, we got to think about that wing. And we said on this side, we just are going to see part of it. And this is going to come around from this side. And we're just going to see a little bit of it, like it's behind him. So we'll bring it down almost to the bottom of him. And then we'll come back up just so you can see part of this wing sticking out. And on the other side, it's going to start right under his head. And it's almost just like a pointed teardrop. I have puppies barking in the background. My puppies are Piper and May. They're sisters. We rescued them 8 years ago, almost 8 years ago. It's hard to believe my girls are 8 years old. So my tan was still wet, and so those colors got to blend together, but that's okay because we're going to come back and add a lot of stroke work to this little guy. I am going to go also going to come back in here and kind of fill in the idea of a bit of a tail feathers underneath the stick that is now going to need to move down a little bit since I made him bigger. And just so I remember how this face is going to go, I'm just going to kind of pull a little of this brown paint underneath here too. Just to kind of give it a little bit of an idea. Again, I'm going to be giving lots and lots of stroke work to this to make this owl look more fluffy and fun. I'm going to come down here, and I think while I have this brown paint, I'm going to think about that beak. That beak's going to kind of come almost like an upside down triangle, right? There we go. We'll fill that in with some color in just a bit. Get good size eyes. I think I really want to make sure they're an even size, so I'm going to take some brown here and just make sure that both of my eyes are about the same size. Might need to fill in a little more with the tan color. Those look like pretty good size eyes. Pick up a little more of that light tan color and just kind of sneak in around those where I just made the shape of his eyes a little more symmetrical. Looks pretty good so far. Let's go ahead and lay in the branch. And I can use the same brown just because I know I'm going to be lightening and darkening him throughout. But I'm just going to mix a little bit of my tan with it, just so it's a little tiny different shade, just for now. So let's just going to come back here. Just know that there's going to be a branch. Not sure if it's going to fade up or down, but we at least have a branch for our owl to think about perching on. I like to wrap things around my canvas. That way if somebody isn't hanging it, it looks a little more finished. And I'm pretty sure we're going to have a branch that's going to go up too. So I'll just mix a little of that brown with a little of that tan. And we can play with those in a bit. But at least gives us an idea that we could have some extra branches coming. All right. Rinse that brush out. And here's where I'm going to start making my owl be a little more, I use the word strokey. I'm just going to, wherever I just laid him down, right? I'm going to come down with these brown, and I'm just going to let him get a little fuzzy on the outer edges. I'm just going to pull from the wing out, and I'm just going to let it be a little fluffy on the edges. I'm going to do that on the head as well, because this owl, maybe not all of them, but this owl is going to be kind of fluffy. So let's just start by pulling from the main part of the fur. I'm just going to pull out and let it be a little fluffy on the edges. I'm going to do the same thing on this wing. And leave a little fluffy at this edge. And heck, let's make him a little, just give him a few extra little fluffy marks in his wing. Oops. And then when I think about his tail, first let's let it be fluffy. I would like my head to be a little rounder. Making a little rounder. Which isn't a problem. We're just going to come back in and we'll fluff it up again. All right. Now within his body, we're going to need some texture there too. And I think what I'm going to do is pull out some of the buttermilk that I had and even some of the tan. I'm going to rinse my brush out. And I'm going to go between that tanned color that we used and give him some extra little strokes. And you're not going to see this because it's the color on color. But what it's doing is giving me some extra texture for this little guy. Boom, boom, boom. And it reminds me to make him a little fluffy on the ends because he wasn't fluffy on the ends. Then I'm not going to clean my brush. I'm just going to go into that buttermilk color and I'm going to give him some extra little, just little fluffy little lines, little strokes. Because that tan is wet, it's blending a lot with my body. And I'm not looking for them to be perfect little strokes. I just want to make him look a little fluffier. And while I'm doing that, let's pick up a little bit of more of a golden color. So this is a true ochre. Really, it is. And I don't need a lot of those, but I want a few of them in there to make them look a little, give them another little variation. And maybe even just a couple little scarce little brown ones in here too. Because everything is still wet, those colors blend pretty well. If you don't want them to blend and you want to see more distinct feathers, you would let each coat dry first or heat it with a blow dryer, which would be letting it dry. So it's kind of got a fluffy little body. We're going to do the same on his face. So let's start. Let's actually start with the brown and make another ring around here. Oops, the brush had too much water in it. Go ahead and give him a pretty thick line of brown all the way around his eye. And then I think I want my owl to have blue eyes. So I know the color I used in the background here was a periwinkle. And I think that might be a little too purpley. So I'm going to see if I can just grab a truer blue. This is sapphire. I think that will work just fine. And for right now, I'm going to fill in that circle inside that brown with sapphire. We kind of need to make our head fluffy before we finish the eyes, because that way we can pull some eyelashes out. But while we're here, let's fill in his nose or his beak with the golden yellow that I had pulled out, which in my case is yellow ochre. So it's just kind of like an upside down triangle. comes to a point. I'm going to grab my brown and I'm going to just go around his beak again, just so we definitely see it when we make his face fuzzy. Oops. Don't want to lose our beak. All right, rinse your brush out and then go back to your tan color that you actually made his face and make him fuzzy on the edges again. Just going to pull from the eye out so he gets a little fuzzy. Again, you're going to see this more as texture than you are as color because this is the color we made him. And I'm just kind of going around the eye, following the shape of the eye. Sometimes you just have to pick up that painting and bring it closer to you. Wiping off the brush but not cleaning it, I'm going to go into the buttermilk color and I'm going to pull some of these buttermilk strokes around to lighten him up around his eye. I'm doing this one and I want it to blend in with the color, but if I decide I want to see these a little more strongly, I will be blow drying it so it's not as blended in. Got a little carried away there. And I know it's going to sound a little silly, but I'm going to pick up a tiny, tiny bit of that blue and I'm going to mix it with the buttermilk so it's a little lighter, and I'm just going to make a little bit of a reflection underneath his eyes. It'll be covered up with more color, but it'll still be part of the reflection of him. Maybe a little bit on each side of his beak. Before I make him a little whiter, I'm going to pick up a little of that gold color. And again, this doesn't have to be everywhere, just a few little bits of gold here and there. And while we're talking about our cute little beak, make sure he's solid color. Mine is pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty good. And I'm just going to take a tiny bit of brown and just go on each side of him to kind of shade that little beak a little tiny bit. Boom, boom, boom. He might even have the tiniest little dots right at the top of his nose. Still want to see that a little bit of that brown between his eyes. So if we've lost it, let's put it back in before we go to make those lighter marks around his face. All right, I'm gonna come back here, and at first I need to fix a little bit of the brown on this guy. I got a little carried away. It's okay. Let's do the first, or the layer up on the head too. So we did it in brown. So now let's mix a little brown and a little bit of the tan color we made, or we could even just use the straight honey brown. And we're just going to give him a few, just very few little strokes in, we'll call it his forehead, just a few little strokes. Maybe he's got a couple little ones coming over here, just to make him, again, look a little fluffy. we can take that color and pull a few of them into his wings. And I think these I'm actually just going to pull up like almost in little layers. Maybe it helps him look like he's got a few more little feathers inside his wing. Next, we're going to come back and play with these eyes a little bit. I said we made them mostly blue. So I'm going to need a touch of black. Before we do that, I am going to, he seems like we have to lighten his face a little more, but let's really make sure we have a distinction of his face and his body with a little bit of brown. And we need to give him some talons too. And his talons can actually be brown as well. They're going to go from his body and they're going to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, kind of onto his perch. Go to your tan here and let's again just pull a couple little lines up to help create some idea of some feathers in his tail. All right, I'm going to rinse my brush again. I'm going to fill in the top almost half. Maybe it's a little more than half with black to be his pupil of his eye. I'm going to round that up on top. We can always outline this guy in black too. He looks really silly right now. Do the same thing on the other one. Because I believe anyone can paint. And if you just break things down a little bit at a time, it's not so scary. So that's what he looks like right now. I want to give my guy eyelashes. And so whether you can do that with a round brush or you like to switch to something a little skinnier, I think I'm going to vote for skinnier today. Maybe not that skinny. You can always thin your paint with a little bit of water, but regardless, you're always going to want to twist it to a nice point, and then start inside your eye and pull your eyelashes out. Boom, boom, boom. He's going up and out. He could also go down if you wanted. I think we're going to go with this. So there are my eyelashes. I think I'll grab that tiny little line that I'm using and I'm going to even outline underneath the brown. Same on this guy. Still want to see a little bit of that blue peeking through. I might even pick up, I think we're good with that. Trying to make sure they're about the same size. Then I'm going to take a tiny bit of, first I'm going to try to take the excuse me, the buttermilk we had, and I want to give it a little line at the top of the left side of the top of his eye, and just a tiny little dot right about where the black and the blue meet down here. Put your brush in water, tap it on your paper towel so there's very little left, and do just the tiniest little mark So I had to pick up a little more paint. You want very little paint on, very little bit of paint on your brush, and just touch a little bit in the opposite corner to give him a little shine in his eye. All right, he should be pretty dry. Is he? He's pretty dry. I think he's pretty dry. So now I'm going to go back and give him another coat of those little strokes with the buttermilk color. And I probably don't need as many, but I want to just come around here and make him kind of really shine. Watch out if you have wet eyelashes. And around his beak, I'm just going to kind of make them flow a little that way. Bring down a little more on his beak. You can decide if you might like a couple. I wouldn't do too many that are strong, but maybe just a couple little extra ones in his chest. Might even be time to maybe do a couple more of those golden colors. This kind of gives him a little of a highlight. Pull a couple little golden ones up here too. We did his talons in brown. Pick one side. I'm going to pick the back side and put a little bit of this gold color next to them to help separate them a little bit. Then I really want to create the idea of a shadow, excuse me, to make sure that it looks like his tail is behind. And I think our tail might need to get a little bigger. His tail looks like it's a little small, but that's no problem. We're just going to come in and we're going to add a little more tail. No problem. And I'll just add a couple more of those strokes in there, and he'll be just, no, wrong color, Tam. I think we're okay. So where I really want to make him look like there's some separation, you can do that with lining, and you can use a paintbrush to line, or you can use something called a floated color. And to do that, you would take a brush, usually a flat brush, and you would dampen it, tap it on a paper towel. Then you would take a little tiny bit of paint on the corner of a brush. Find a place on your palette or your paper towel that you can push down back and forth to help spread that paint evenly across the brush. And then, like if I wanted to go on his tail, if I lay that down, it's softened to that black. I'm going to do it right next to his wing on this side, just to deepen that shadow. And I would do it next to his wing on this side as well. I don't really know if he needs any down below. I guess I could give it a tiny bit. And even add a couple little darker strokes in his upper hair. That just helps set him in a little bit. And I'm not too worried here because I'm going to bring some flowers up on his by his feet, but I'm going to just shadow them on one side, maybe on both sides, so his feet stand out just a touch. Okay. Now I'm a girl who loves flowers, whether they're just random, whether they're a particular kind. And I think this background would really kind of play well with some pink flowers. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to grab a green paint. And I know the color in the background of here started off with a Hauser green medium. So I'm pretty sure I could use that color. And I know the yellow in there was just a, oh, was it a bright yellow? It was a bright yellow. Yes, it was. It was cadmium yellow. Okay. So those are going to be a couple colors that I'm going to create some greens with. And then the brush I'm going to use is going to be a brush that is a little, what I like to call well-loved. They're a little fluffy like such. So first I'm going to pick up a little bit of this green, and I'm going to just tap that paint on my paper towel. Nothing hard, just to take a little bit of it off. And I'm just going to think that there's going to be some almost like mossy stuff that's kind of growing on this branch that we can see. We should probably go ahead, I'll just have to get this first bit on, and we will probably go ahead and add a few more branches. Excuse me. I know that's going to blend in with the background pretty well because it's the same color. Let me rinse it out. And when we did that, we used the burnt umber and a little bit of the tan color. So let's just add a few more branches to our limb here first. First, I think I'm going to make sure that there's a branch that's going to kind of maybe come down from about here, connecting to my main branch. Wherever you're coming off of the trunk or a smaller branch off of a branch, you just want to make sure that you're creating little V's. That's probably good. And let's grab another one that's going to come up here, a browner. I think we're going to need a branch that's going to come down this way a little more. This is very much where you want there to be branches. Doesn't have to be exactly like mine for in any way. And when you go off, you're going to get a little skinnier as you go away from your main tree, in our case. Just laying a few more branches, and then we can add some distinct flowers. And again, I can come back with the green if I want to pull some of that soft greenery up into some extra branches that I just did. Careful of your brown, it's probably wet. Okay. So I think some pink flowers would be very pretty, and I'm going to keep these flowers pretty simple. I have a color called dragon fruit, and I also have a nice soft pink that is called, I don't know what it's called. Let's see what it's called. Cotton candy. And I just want these to be little petal flowers, so I'm going to use a round brush. And I'm going to start by picking up my dark pink, and then I'm just going to pick up a little bit of pink on the very tip of my brush. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a place that I can sit it down and lift. go across, sit it down, and lift. Reload when I need. And I'm going to make about 6 petals on my flower. And if they get to be too dark, I can go back over with the lighter pink. And I'm not going to worry too much about my centers right now. But I'm just going to make little ideas of little petal flowers. And I might have a few that are just smaller, clumped together. Then go back and forth between these pinks. Some of them might be lighter, some of them might be bigger. So I'm making them about 6 petals, and some of them are much less. Let's do some little ones up here. They're going to get centers too. I'm going to do a couple down here. Maybe our one. That one got very light, so we're going to come back with a little bit of the darker color and add just a tiny bit of the darker color too. Okay. And I think we're going to take a little yellow and just tap in the centers of these flowers. They'll probably need a little brown too, but let's just get the little centers. Wherever you see a little flower that you made, tap in a little bit of these centers. I'm going to wipe my brush off, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of the brown. And I'm just going to tap a little bit right on one side of them. So those pink really do blend very much into the background. So maybe we need, definitely going to need some brighter green leaves to connect those. Let's see, what else could we add? I think we're going to add some white flowers. So let's pull out some white. White's going to show up much brighter than the tan colors that we used. And I'm going to use the same approach. I'm just going to go set down, lift up, set down, lift up, set down, lift up, set down, lift up. That one got a little mushy because I had a little too much water in my brush, but it's going to be fine. Oops. I guess we're going to have a flower there because I just dripped. Put that in here. Sweet little flowers. Some of them just end up being 5. And just 1 or 2 more. I can get carried away with flowers. So those are all going to need centers too. And since we did the yellow again, I guess. Or maybe we'll use, let me try this. What happens if we do the bright pink in the middle? Oh, I like that. The bright pink in the middle. Just a little touch of bright pink in the middle of these white ones. And we're going to need a leaf here and there that is a little more defined. So we're going to use Hauser Green Light. If you don't have Hauser Green Light, you can always just add a little yellow to the other Hauser. And whether you like to make little leaves or big leaves, if we're making bigger leaves, I might use a flat brush and just simply set my brush down and lift them. I come to a little point. This is some of my bigger leaves that I'm using to kind of fill in on parts of my branches. I think that had pink in it. It's a good thing I caught that. So just with the green, I'm just going to fill in a couple spots where you might want some bigger leaves sticking out. And the smaller leaves you can either do with a smaller flat brush, or you can just go back to your round brush and just kind of do the same thing where we're just going to, maybe this has got a little bit of a line coming up and there's just a couple little tiny leaves coming off of it. One more down here. I really hope you guys will like and follow our channel so that we can be here when you want to learn how to paint something else that has that little bit of a almost a complicated look, but by the time we paint it, you realize how simple it really was. There was nothing hard about this piece, was there? I'm going to take the darker green, and on those lighter ones, I'm just going to give them a little bit of a vein. I'd love to know what you think of the little owl. Should we name him? So we made a very simple, almost cartoon type owl look a little more fluffy and fun by adding those extra strokes all the way around. And then we came in and added some flowers. I'm going to do one more thing with the flowers. I think I'm going to go back to that really scruffy brush I had. And I'm going to dip it into white, and I'm going to take almost all of it off. First I got to clean that brush. That brush is dirty. And here and there, I'm going to just almost tap in, almost it'll look like maybe some blossoms that haven't even opened yet. Just tiny little touches, just to give it a little more, just little taps. I think it's important to sign your pieces, even if you need to turn them around and sign them on the back. But this little guy is about finished. It's one of those things that you can probably go back over and over again and make him more and more. Oops, that got dark. We didn't want dark. We wanted white. Light. The more you add, the fluffier he's going to get. But he looks pretty darn cute. So this is our owl, and remember, you can go back and see our other video where we did the background of these really soft kind of lights. I hope you liked this, and I hope you will follow me for more. Can't wait to see you again soon. Cheers.